Good evening, everybody. We're going to call the meeting to order. We're going to move on to the approval of the agenda. The agenda of the special meeting of council held on May 26, 2025 be approved as presented. May I have a mover, please?
I'll move.
Thank you. Seconder, please. Moved and seconded. Any comments or questions? Here and seeing none, I'll call the vote. All those in favor? And that's carried. Going to move on to disclosure of pecuniary interest and general nature thereof. Does any member have a pecuniary interest for the item on the agenda? And if so, what is that general nature of that interest? Here and see none, so we'll move on to 4, motion for consideration that the council of the corporation of the village of Merrickville-Wolford receive for information the motion for consideration documented as presented. May I have a mover, please? Thank you. Seconder, please. Seconded. Thank you. Comments or questions, please? Here and see none, we'll call the vote. All in favor? Carried. Thank you. I'm going to move on to the public meeting. 5.1 draft zone bylaw. The council of the corporation of the village of Merrickville-Wolford enter into a statutory public meeting regarding the second draft zone bylaw. May I have a mover, please?
Move.
Thank you. And a seconder, please. Moved and seconded. Thank you. Any comments or questions from council at this point? No. We're going to wait for the vote. So I'll now call the public meeting to order. This is the second public meeting.
We can call them.
We can call the vote. Thank you, clerk. Call the vote. All those in favor? Thank you. I'm now calling the public meeting to order. This is the second public meeting for the purpose of providing another opportunity for members of the public to learn more about the proposed changes to the second draft zone bylaw, ask questions, and or make statements either in favor of or in opposition to the proposed changes. Comments will form part of a public record and will be included in the minutes of this public meeting. The village is now considering a new zoning bylaw schedule to implement the policies of the new official plan, address recent changes to the Planning Act, reflect best practices, and address housekeeping matters. I will now call on Senior Planner Forbes Simon to provide a brief overview of his report included in the agenda regarding the second draft zone bylaw. Mr. Simons.
Thank you very much, Mayor. This is, as you indicated, the second sort of public meeting for this. There was felt that there was enough changes with the discussion draft to warrant a second public look at the document. I believe the document captures all of the changes that have been spoke of to date and that have been before council. In this draft, the highlighted portions relate to the changes since the discussion draft for ease of reference. And we're hopeful that we're getting very, very close and that we would be in a position to hopefully consider passage next month, pending comments this evening.
Thank you very much. Appreciate that. I will now proceed with asking members of the public if they choose to comment. Please raise your hand. I will call upon you to stand and come to the front. Please state your name for the record and the clerk will include comments in the minutes. Do we have any questions from the members of the public? Go ahead, sir.
Hi, I'm Jim Liddy. I live on Wolford Drive. I have a couple of questions. One concerning the additional residential units. I live in an established neighborhood. It's about 30 years old. It consists of a number of single detached homes. And currently there are 2 vacant lots on the street that have never been developed. I'd like to know under these provisions whether anything other than a single family dwelling can be built on those vacant lots.
Mr. Simons.
Thanks very much. Thanks for the question. The additional residential unit is certainly a new area of planning in Ontario that we're all trying to deal with. It is prescribed in areas of a municipality where there's municipal sewer and water, and it's discretionary in the rural area.
Mm-hmm.
The discussions around the council table have been that generally they're a good low impact way of introducing affordable rental accommodation. And I would anticipate that wherever there is a residential unit as a principal use,
Mhm.
that an ARU 1 or 2 would be permitted, subject to the performance criteria set out, that they meet the frontage, they
Mhm.
meet the lot area, they're not in a hazard property and things of that nature.
Okay, now you say it's discretionary in a rural area.
Correct.
So what does that mean exactly?
That means it's up to council to decide whether they wish to allow additional residential units,
Mhm.
allow them as a right as they're permitted in the urban area, or allow them subject to amendment in the rural area. The approach that's taken here is that it would be the same as the urban, that they would be permitted as a right
Mhm.
on properties where a dwelling is the principal use.
Okay, now, in our neighborhood, because it is an old established neighborhood, there are covenants that the neighborhood, the whole neighborhood is bound by, that were established when the neighborhood was built. Now, would those covenants override any decisions made by council in a matter such as an additional residential unit?
Mr. Science?
That's a challenging question. Typically, planning is governed by a subdivision agreement, which is registered on title and binding to successive owners within that development in the official plan and the zoning bylaw. Covenants are a private contractual arrangement
Mhm.
between the original purchaser and the original developer. They do not override planning to the best of my knowledge.
I see.
Though that may be something that's worth having the municipal solicitor look at the status of these covenants. I've never been a fan of them. And I think that I've historically paid little regard to them because they're not a municipal planning or a public document. It's a private contractual. I don't believe they would trump planning, but again, I would defer to a solicitor's opinion on
Yeah.
that matter.
If you look up covenants, they are legally binding, so I'm just not sure between which parties.
I think that they would be between the signatures of the party,
Mhm.
and I don't believe they're binding on successive owners as well, but again, I know zoning, official plans and subdivision agreements. I'm not an expert on other
Yeah.
covenant type stuff.
Okay. The purpose of the covenants in certain neighborhoods are to ensure that certain guidelines are followed when homes are initially built in that neighborhood under certain guidelines. And getting back to my original question, which was actually outside of the additional residential units, it's about vacant lots. Under the current housing program, could someone apply to put up anything other than a single detached home in a neighborhood that has been defined as such?
My understanding is that the zoning of the property is rural, which has
It's
with it,
rural residential, yes.
and it has with it single detached as the principal use of the property. I don't believe it identifies duplexes or triplexes or higher density.
Mhm.
The ARUs would be the exception.
Okay, that's if there was something already on the lot, that's where the ARUs come into.
No, an ARU could be purpose built.
Mhm.
You could build a house with 2 apartments in it, and that would qualify as an ARU. You could build a house with 1 apartment in it and 1 in a detached garage or detached structure. Again, that's permitted.
Okay, so just so I'm clear, an owner of one of these vacant lots in our neighborhood could apply for something other than a single detached home. They could apply for a multi-residential unit or a townhouse or something.
No, no, they could apply to have a change to zoning to allow that.
Okay,
But the way the bylaw is written, that's before council. They would be able to go to the building inspector and apply for up to 2 additional residential units on a property where there's a principal dwelling, so.
where there's
and
already
it-
a principal.
No, it can be purpose built,
Oh,
and
I
this
see.
is what's happening in a lot of jurisdictions. And essentially, in urban areas, we've got down to a minimum density of 3 units per property is sort of the essence of it. And the suggestion is to do the same a little bit.
Okay. All right, I don't want to take up too much time, but if someone could just explain to me just the general overall purpose of these changes. What is it you're trying to do here?
The additional residential unit.
Not, no, the whole document in.
Okay.
in-
Yeah, so, in 2023, the village's official plan was updated and approved by, the United Counties of Leeds and Grenville.
Okay.
The Planning Act states that you have 2 years to update your zoning bylaw to bring it into compliance with the official plan. That was the primary instigator for doing the update, but at the same time, we took the opportunity to identify recent legislative changes under the Planning Act, which are on a fairly regular basis coming through. Plus looking at sort of best in class examples of where the document could be improved and clarified and worked on. So the initial premise was to update in accordance with the planning or the official plan, but we took the opportunity to do a much more sort of comprehensive update.
Okay, so the plan is to allow more densification. Is that what this purpose is?
The more densification is something that's happening in planning across the board throughout the province, initiated by the Minister of Municipal Affairs and Housing. All these changes that have happened over the last 6 years to the Planning Act and to the provincial policy statement have to a large extent been focused on addressing our housing crisis and increasing density and streamlining the approval process. So yeah, increasing density is certainly a prominent component of modern day planning.
Okay, yes, I've noticed a lot more development recently in Merrickville-Wolford, so if that is all part of this, I'm assuming this is to allow more development along those lines.
Not solely, but it's one of the planning tools that is used to manage growth and development. Yes.
Okay, thanks very much.
Thank you. Is there any other member of the public who'd like to speak? Go ahead, Mr. Giles.
I think it follows along with some of the questions that you just heard. Excuse me. I think I understand that the bylaws are intended to be tools that can be used to achieve the objectives and the priorities of our official plan. Is that true?
I'm sorry, your name, sir?
Robbie Giles. And I made a submission on April 30th, and I'll try and clarify, if you like, my intent in the submission. Your response or the response to the question about, is this primarily about densification and development? I think the work that's been done is laudable and probably achieves the end of a tick sheet that somebody can use to make sure that we conform to what we want and intend. I just find that there is a significant absence of emphasis on other priority areas as articulated in the official plan and certainly in our own strategic plan and in the Merrickville submission to the composite official plan, notably our stated bias to preserving natural environments, cultural environments. And I ask the planner through the chair how these zoning bylaws fit with the achievement of the overall priorities. We had 4 pillars in our strategic plan. I think by and large, this addresses the good governance and that they all work to that end. But I would like to hear the higher thinking on the achievement of the priorities in the official plan and the strategic plan.
Thank you very much, Mayor, through you. That's a great question. And it's not as clearly stated as it is in the official plan. The official plan is a policy document,
It is.
where zoning is more regulatory in nature. But one of the things that you'll see in the zoning bylaw document relates specifically to the mapping. And the mapping of wetlands, provincially significant wetlands, are identified in the official plan and given policy protection in the official plan. They are also identified on the zoning bylaw and given a setback protection of 120 meters, as is prescribed under the provincial policy statement and the Natural Heritage Manual. We also have shoreline protection measures. We've got a 30-meter setback for all development from water. And should there be a need that's triggered by new lot creation to assess whether there's impact on the natural environment, there's the ability through the official plan and the lot creation process to trigger environmental studies that are specific to that property and the boundaries of the natural areas. So I think it would be my opinion that we're implementing the environmental policies of the official plan that are that can come into a zoning bylaw, and it's primarily mapping and setbacks. And that's being achieved, and then on a day-to-day basis, as new lots that are being created, they're assessed against the policies of the official plan to make sure that they're meeting the environmental standards set out there.
Perhaps you could just explain it again, if I may. It seems that in the last 4 or 5 years in particular, that we keep creating divisiveness around development. And I'm wondering, when we have a proponent come forward, whether they have any obligation to look at the official plan or the strategic plan and address the priorities in those plans as part of their submissions.
So the short answer is yes. There is an expectation within the planning world that those wishing to invest in a community do so in conformity with the local official plan. Right? That's been the expectation and path and approach for my entire career up until very, very, very recently, where we are seeing, not in this community, but in other communities nearby, large developers coming in and more or less imposing their will on a community and saying, this is how we're going to develop, and we're not so concerned about your official plan. This is the way we're going to do it, and we're empowered because we have to build all these houses. So there is a concern that that's going to become a dominant approach by the development industry in general and not just the big dogs. It's an expensive approach. Takes a lot of time and effort and money on behalf of the developer to ignore local policies. And it typically would be adjudicated before the Ontario Land Tribunal. And the example I'm thinking of is in the town of Perth right now, and there's a large 1,000-lot development on the former golf course. And it's surrounded by wetlands in a very natural, significant area. And the developers basically come in with an application that says, I don't care what your official plan says, this is what we're going to do. And we're seeing signs of that throughout the province in terms of approach, but it's not the preferred approach. It's not the approach we've had in the village of Merrickville to date. And anybody that's been coming in and investing in the community are encouraged and given direction to the official plan and implementing those policies.
Any other questions from any other member? Go ahead, please state your name.
My name is Peter Schmidt. I live at 437 County Road 23. First, I would like to express my appreciation to council and staff for the efforts that you're undertaking with the change in the bylaws. It's a big effort, so I'd say thank you for that. I also would like to support a number of the changes, specifically around property standards and things like illumination. I think these are all good things to help our community understand and live with each other. My specific question for you tonight, though, is how does the village plan to address property owners who refuse to comply with the bylaw? For example, bylaw officer comes to you and says, you're not in compliance with this, and the property owner goes, I don't care. What is the village's approach to dealing with non-compliance? Because quite frankly, I think a lot of the bylaws are going in the right direction in terms of being clear about what the expectations are, but I'm not so sure that I understand how non-compliance will be addressed.
Thank you very much. Not quite related to the zoning bylaw in the public meeting, but I'm going to indulge the question if I may. Bylaw enforcement in this municipality, as it is with many of our rural small town communities, is based on a complaint-driven basis. When we get a complaint, we go out and we do an investigation. Typically, the approach is to work with the property owner to seek compliance, giving them time and opportunity to do that. Ultimately, there are situations where enforcement has to go to the next level, and it usually requires a charge under the zoning bylaw. So there's enforcement sections in the zoning bylaw, there's enforcement sections under the Planning Act. Fines can be up to $10,000 a day for an individual and $100,000 a day for a corporation, though that is extremely rare. And going before a JP on a zoning compliance issue is at the best of times 50-50 sort of crapshoot. Municipalities have not had the level of success enforcing our bylaws before JPs historically that we would like to see. When it goes to a judge, it usually is a case that's a serious case that we're prepared to invest time and money and commit to. But ultimately, we're in the hands of someone that's not necessarily a council expert or a planning expert to make an opinion on that. So the most success I think communities have is seeking compliance and working with the property owner to address the concerns. But ultimately, you have to defend the bylaw. If someone's saying, no, they're not gonna do that, you have to make the call of whether you're gonna put it before the judge and have a 50-50 crapshoot on it.
So, and who makes that call in terms of whether to go forward or not? Is the complainant part of this process, or is it?
I didn't know. I think once the complaint's made, we sort of hand it off. Typically, it's a discussion at the senior staff at the CAO, and then ultimately, it could be before council in camera because it is a legal matter. And we would seek direction from council, particularly if you're getting into a situation where public funds are being spent to defend
I think we've sort of,
Yeah.
we're a little bit
It's not on
far
the
off the
zone
road
bylaw.
here, so if you have anything specific to the official plan, then.
Well, it was just around, you're strengthening the bylaws, and so my question was really directed at, well, you're strengthening, excellent move. Are you planning to enforce them? And that's really what Mr. Simon, I think, helped me with.
Yeah.
So,
So,
thank you. I
Yeah.
would just encourage council and staff to work hard at that, and certainly if I came forward with one, I would be looking for enforcement and a robust process to look at the situation.
we appreciate that.
Thank you.
Anyone who hasn't signed in, could you please sign in before you leave for the public meeting? The sign-in book is at the back. Thank you. Any other questions or comments? Go ahead. Come forward, please.
My name is Tina Jolmy. I'm a resident of 803 County Road 23 in Merrickville. It's just to take up on the point of discussion earlier with respect to the Merrickville-Wolford strategic plan and how it ties in to this process, because you did speak about the official plan and the provincial policy statement or planning questions, but I think it's very important to consider the Merrick-Wolford strategic plan, and I'd like to know how it's taken into consideration at this stage, considering it's coming to an end in 2025 and a new one's going to be developed. So how does it all tie in with the current bylaw amendment process?
I think you already answered the question.
Well,
Yeah, the focus has been on planning. The strategic plan is not a document under the Planning Act. And it's up to staff to bring and council to bring those issues in the strategic plan that they want to see addressed in the zoning. To date, there's not been that many that I'm aware of that were directly tied to the strategic plan. And the effort has been mostly on the local official plan, the county official plan, and the PPS.
if I understand, the strategic plan isn't really taken into consideration when drafting the amendments to the bylaw.
Not directly.
So what's the purpose of the strategic plan?
Very different than an official plan. It's a strategic document. It's action oriented, where the official plan is more policy and aspirational in nature. Looking forward, the strategic plan is a short document for a specific period of time to address community needs. There can be correlation between an official plan and strategic plan, but typically, and I'm speak, if I may,
Yes, you may.
Mayor, speak as just as a professional planner. Strategic plans aren't something that we would necessarily spend a lot of time mining and spending time with, because their purpose and intent is very different than what planning documents are. And so typically, if there are strategic planning issues, they would be very general in nature, like update your zoning bylaw to be reflective of current zoning practices. That would be a strategic plan type of action, as opposed to saying update the zoning bylaw by expanding the range of uses of hobby farms, right? Typically it wouldn't be like that. So it's not a document really that gets referred to that much in my world. But I realize that it's an important document, and as a former municipality employee, It was part of our annual budget preparation and strategic actions for a work plan for a year. So that's how I used it in the past. I think it's very similar here, but it's not related specifically to planning.
Okay, perhaps may I ask members of council how they view the strategic?
We're just here for you to have an opportunity to ask questions. Council is not
Okay,
debating or taking
Okay.
questions at this point. It will come to a future meeting where council will have the opportunity to weigh in.
and on the process, so if I may indulge you for one more minute. So we have till June sixth to provide comments.
Correct.
And so there's no decision made until additional comments are provided.
That's correct.
Thank you.
Any other questions or comments from members of the public? I'll call a second time. Any questions from the members of the public? And we'll call a third time. Any questions from the members of the public? Okay, I hear and see none. So now that everyone's had the opportunity to provide their comments, I'll put one more final call to the public for any further comment. Final call. Hear and see none. So the second round of the written submission comments are being accepted until June 6, 2025. All comments, questions, concerns will be conciliated by the planner. A final draft will be brought to the June committee of a whole meeting for consideration. Now that we've given the opportunity for the public to comment on this topic, this therefore closes the public meeting. We will now return to the special meeting of council for confirming bylaw and adjournment. So now that the Council of Corporation of the Village of Merrickville-Wolford closes the meeting and resumes to a special meeting of the council, may I have a mover, please? Thank you. And a seconder, please.
I'll second.
Thank you. I'll call the vote. All in favor? Carried. Thank you. Confirming bylaw 29/2024 that the Council of the Corporation of the Village of Merrickville-Wolford give first, second, third, and final reading to bylaw 29/2025. Being a bylaw to confirm the proceedings of council for the special meeting of May 26, 2025, and further that authorization be given to the mayor clerk, sign, seal, and place in the bylaw book for the municipality bylaw number 29/2025. May I have a mover, please?
I'll move.
Thank you. Seconder, please. Moved and seconded. I'll call the vote. All in favor? Carried. Thank you. Move on to adjournment at the Council of the Corporation of the Village of Merrickville-Wolford adjourn at 5:27. Is that correct, clerk?
5:33.
Or-
5:33.
Don't look at that clock.
Yeah, double.
Sorry.
5:33. The clock is wrong. Thank you. I'll ask for a mover, please. And a seconder, please.
Second.
Thank you. Moved in second. Call the vote. All in favor? Carried. Thank you.